In this Power BI dataset, I have two KPIs, but I have 8 other supporting measures, and it's too much. Yet in this Power BI dataset, I only have two measures, yet it can still do all of the same calculations that the other 8 measures in the previous file could do. So, how is that possible? Well, it's something called a calculation group. Calculation groups are made up of small, reusable pieces of code called calculation items that you can take and you can apply to any measure. So instead of needing to create a separate measure for current year, a separate measure for prior year, and a separate measure for versus prior year, and a separate measure for better or worse, all you need to do is define those calculations once in a calculation item that's part of a calculation group, and you're done. It'll work for any measure in your data model. No need to make those individual measures over and over and over again. So, what are we going to be doing in today's video? Well, we're going to be starting with that original file that I showed that had 8 measures, and we're going to be turning it into the second file that I showed that had 2 measures and one calculation group. You ready? Well, let's get started. Okay, so here's the file without the calculation group. As you can see, I have my base KPIs. I have them filtered down to the current year. I have them filtered down to the prior year. I have a versus prior year where I am taking current year minus prior year. And then I have a better or worse where I am basically showing the change in percentage form between current year and prior year. And as you can see, that is quite a few measures. Here's the file that we are going to be building. As you can see, I've got my measures right here with current year, prior year, versus prior year, and then better or worse. So it's the same exact measures, just in this file, I only have two. So let's get building. The first thing that we're going to do is going to be a little bit scary, and we're going to delete out all these measures that we don't need. So delete from model, and delete from model. And I won't make you watch me do this. Once we have them all deleted, we're going to go into the model view. Then we're going to go up here to calculation group and we're going to click this button right here to create a calculation group. And we're going to get a warning, but we're going to click through it. And we now have a calculation group. And that calculation group will start with just one calculation item, and it takes an input of the selected measure. So now we need to define the reusable pieces of code that, well, make up our calculation group. So we'll leave this calculation item right here and we'll title this one base measure. And we'll just make it equal to selected measure. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over here to these 3 dots and we're going to click new calculation item. And we're going to create our current year calculation. So we'll go current year. And here I'm going to go use a calculate statement. And around this calculate statement, I'm going to put the selected measure. And then I am going to apply a filter. Now, this date table has offset columns, which means that the current year is always going to be equal to 0. The prior year will be 1, and then the prior year will be 2. Simultaneously, the next year will be -1. Now, I know there's DAX time intelligence functions. I like offset columns a lot more, so I tend to put them in almost every single date table that I make. If you want a video on what offset columns are, let me know down in the video comments that you want to see that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to use my offset column and I'm going to say where equals 0, and that should calculate my current year calculation. So I'll go ahead and I'll hit this checkbox. So now we have a current year calculation. It's now time to go over here, click new calculation item, and create a prior year. And because we have our offset columns, right, this is very simple. We can just go right here and set it to 1. And we now have a prior year, which means it's now time for our verses. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to go versus prior year. And this, again, we will need to calculate our current year. So we'll go var cur year equals calculate. And then our expression here, we will use our calculation item. So we'll go calculation group column equals cy, right? And then we will, quotes. So there we go, CY. And then we'll do right here. We'll hit that Alt Enter. We'll go prior year. Right, and we'll go PY. And then we will return right down here, current year minus prior year. So now we have our versus prior year, and then we have just one more calculation group item to create. So I'll go right here, and we will go new calculation item, and this will be our better or worse percent. So we'll go better or worse, and again we will use variables. So we'll go Alt Enter, and we'll go var versus py, and we'll go calculate selected measure, and then we will go right here, calculation group column equals versus py, and then we'll go Alt Enter var, and we'll go prior year. So we'll go py equals calculate, and we'll just copy this code right here and paste it right here. So now it's py. And then we will return a divide statement. So we'll go divide, and our numerator will be our versus prior year divided by prior year. And we'll want it to return 0. So now we have our better and worse percent. So at this point, we now have a usable calculation group. So if we go back over into this table and we delete all these out right here, we bring sales in, and then we bring our calculation group column into the columns, what you'll see is that they start to calculate out. However, we do have a few things that we need to fix, mainly around the better or worse percent. And that's because this is a percent, but a calculation group inherits the formatting of the measures that it's applying to. So it's not applying right here. So let's go back to our model view. Let's click this better or worse percent. Let's go formatting on dynamic formatting string. We'll turn it on, and we will go right here, up here, and we will go 0.00%, and we will hit check on that. And just like that, we now have better or worse percents. Now, here's one other thing you might be noticing. The better and worse percent is all the way over here. So we need to define a custom sort order. So once again, let's go back into model view. This time, let's select our calculation items, and let's define that custom sort order by dragging them this way. So we now have a sort order right here. And then let's also just kind of rename this calculation group. So I'm going to double click it. I'm going to title it the ultimate calc group. And then my calc group column is going to be my time measure. And then one of the other things is we don't need this KPI table that I had right here. So we're going to go select our measures, which are in our base KPIs folder right here. And I am going to change the home table of this to the ultimate calc group, and then change the home table here to the ultimate calc group once again. And then we're going to go to our KPIs table, and we're going to delete that from the model. And just like that, we now have a calculation group that contains all of our base measures, as well as all of the time measures or comparisons that we might want to have something sliced by. So this is a much simpler model than the file we originally started with, which had 10 different measures, 8 of which were to just display current year, prior year versus prior year, and better or worse percent. And just like that, you now know how to create calculation groups. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, if you could give it a thumbs up, that'd be great. And if you give it a thumbs up and then it asks you to hype the video, please do that, because that really helps the channel grow. And with that, thank you for watching.